Hey, scrappers, recyclers, and investors. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every Sunday we take a look at things that are going on in precious metals market, industrial metals market. We have a little safety discussion, and we answer your questions as they come up in the comments. It is great to be here. I tell you what, fall is really starting to kick in up here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. It's been beautiful up here lately. Nice, cool, crisp mornings. The leaves are changing. I mean, this is what the mountain life is supposed to be about. And fortunately, this year we didn't have a tropical storm come through and shred all the trees off. So things are really pretty up here. Let's see, who do we have joined us already? We've got Roger at CU Scrapping will be joining us on the replay because it's Roger's birthday, and so he's going to be out celebrating today. Happy birthday, Roger. We've got David Fillet in the house. Andy Padadeux is with us. Mike's Meltdown. David Fillet, Paul Fisher, William Waller. Let's see, folks saying hi. Scrapping Irish is here. Richard Hulbert, welcome. Always great to have you here. Electronic Scrappers in the house. All right. Well, we've got quite a few folks lined up. So I don't want to keep everybody waiting. We're going to jump right in here with our precious metals discussion, and it's gold. And holy cow. I mean, really, look at that. 4,033.80. Just absolutely amazing. Now, before we get going here, I do need to remind everybody, I have to say this disclaimer that I am not sponsored by APMEX. I received no compensation from APMEX. They just happen to be one of the places that I have used repeatedly to buy and sell my precious metals. And I always recommend that people hold a certain amount of gold and silver as physical gold and silver in their possessions. And APMEX is a great place to buy and sell your physical gold and silver. And I like their charts. They've got some good charts here. So let's take a look. Here we are. We're looking at the 1 week chart for gold. And I mean, this was just, we saw the prices going up here. Then we had a nice little steep rise. We sort of plateaued for a while, had a little correction as investors sort of digested everything, tried to figure out what was going on, and then it started climbing back up again. Now, I did do a couple of posts during the week about what was happening with gold. And if you're part of my membership program, you got a little bit of an inkling of what was going to go on here with this dip. It was just amazing to watch this play out here during the week. And there's going to be some more corrections with gold as we move forward, but really gold is doing really well. I mean, we've never seen gold like this before. If we go to the 3-month period here, we can see that we had this early in the quarter, gold sort of trundling along here, and of course we smooth out all the ups and downs, a lot of the ups and downs as we look at a 3-month period. But here we see that big climb. Now, hidden in here, of course, are all these gyrations that we've talked about over the course of this live stream. Just some really nice movement on gold for us. And I say for us because here in the scrapping world, this is really good stuff to see. We take a look at the 1 year, and this is just, we're just looking at some record levels for gold here. In fact, if we take a look at all the way back to the mid 70s, we're seeing that we are at record levels for gold. I mean, we've not been here before. So this is uncharted territory. Let's head on over to the Trading Economics site and a quick look at their discussion. Gold surged past the 4,000 mark, hitting 4,059 all-time high on Wednesday, fueled by renewed tensions between Washington and Beijing after U.S. President indicated that there was no reason to meet with China's Xi Jinping to in 2 weeks to talk as planned, yeah, that would cause a lot of economic turmoil, wouldn't it? We have the ceasefire and the peace negotiations for Gaza, which is good. That could help things, and it's great to see that maybe things will settle down there. And we also see that the U.S., because we might be lowering our interest rates, that has gold investors interested as well. So, as we've discussed every week, as this has been playing out, economic turmoil, wars, uncertainty in monetary policy, and tariffs, these are all driving gold and silver higher because investors will naturally turn to gold and silver as investments during times of economic turmoil. Uh, we're also going to take a look at the perspective of gold and should you be buying some gold right now, here in a minute. But the first thing I want to talk about is as scrappers and recyclers, uh, what does this tell us? Well, if we look at the forecast here, and as always, when we go into the forecast mode, draw your attention to this part of the chart right here. And the discussion shows that gold is looking to get up into the territory of 4,248-ish in the 12 months ahead. So we see a nice smooth rise for gold. And, this kind of slope is a pretty good slope. Remember now, we've seen some conflicting guidance here over the course of the last couple of weeks where we saw a little bit of a downturn before picking up again. And was this last week's downturn, that correction before climbing again? Is there going to be another correction before it climbs again? There's going to be churn around this line, of course. But this is a pretty nice line for us. And why is this good for us as scrappers? Because it gives our buyers, boardsort.com, your local yards, whoever you sell your gold bearing material to, the confidence that they can hold or increase their prices. And that means that we don't have to panic sell. We can, if we want to, we can hold a little bit and watch the prices go up. We can sell as we need to for cash flow without the fear that we're going to miss out on future some upcoming spike in the pricing. And that's really good for folks that have, like me or Mike, that are in the small business world of scrapping. We need to keep moving stuff for cash flow purposes. And, do we want to keep a little bit of a side to take advantage of a price spike, or do we just keep selling into this as the prices rise, knowing that, yeah, we're not going to get as much this week as we might next month, but you know what? We're not going to take a bath either. So these are good, comforting kind of times. Now, unfortunately, it's the chaos and turmoil in the world that is making things a little more comfortable for us in the scrapping world. But that's the nature of the beast that we're a part of. So let's talk about, should you buy gold? There are folks in the audience right now that extract their own gold, they recover it. There's a lot of other folks out here that are selling their gold to people. And then the question always comes down to, well, is this a good time to buy gold? When people see these prices going up like this, a lot of people suffer from FOMO and they're like, oh, I got to buy some gold. I got to buy some gold. All right, so let's just take a calculated look at buying some gold right now. We see that the spot price for gold was, if we just go back here, we see the spot price at 4,033. If we look at what Trading Economics is saying, for the current price, we're at 4,015. So the question that you're asking yourself is, if I buy here, can I sell out here and make some money on it? And the reason why, the price is going up, so you would say, oh yeah, I'm going to make money, but there's always a premium involved. So here, let's do a real example of what we're talking about right now. So here is a 2025 Austria 1-ounce gold Philharmonic on APMEX. You're probably not going to buy more than 10 of them, right now. I mean, some of you might be able to, but I'm guessing that most of us would be buying, one or two or something like that. If we write a check for that, it's going to cost us $4,153.79. That represents a premium on this coin of around $232, or roughly 6%. Now, if that premium of 4,153 minus today's spot price is a premium of about $138. I misspoke. Sorry about that. $138 roughly. All right, now let's go back to this chart here, and we see that we're going to get up to, they're forecasting gold to get up to 4,224 or 4,000, in the language they say 4,248. All right, so from today's spot to the future spot there, they're saying 232. So if you subtract the premium of 138 from that future value, or that difference of 232, you're going to make roughly $94, $95. So you have the possibility that you could make $94, $95 or so, and that represents about a 2% growth. This goes back to the discussion of why investors might be going into gold. One of the reasons that investors are going into gold, because they see the interest rates lowering on, from the Fed, and that if they can buy some gold, sell it in the future, and make anywhere from 2 to 6%, depending on their buying power, then they'll have done better than if they just park that money in the bank with some sort of low interest yield. And that's why when the interest rates go down from the Fed, you can see more people kind of going into gold. It's another one of those reasons. And even as small-time investors ourselves, we stand to do okay here if you want to put $4,000 at risk. And that's really what it all comes down to, is the question of, are you willing to put around $4,000 or more at risk over the course of the next year in anticipation that it's going to grow as much as they're forecasting, and you get that money back. So that's those are the kind of risk analysis questions that the industrial investors are making all the time, institutional investors, and that we as small-time investors need to ask ourselves. And of course, the other question is, hey, if you've got gold now, do you take some money off of the table and sell it now, or do you hang on to it and keep trying to catch those highs? And again, the institutional investors are doing the same thing. And that explains why, if we go back here and we take a look at, say, this dip right in here, well, that dip may have been in part to some investors taking money off the table. And then it sort of came back in again. So, those kind of questions play out whether you're a small-time investor or, you're one of the big money guys or the central bank people and those kind of things. All right. Well, let's go over and see what you all have had to say about gold while we have been chit chatting here. I'm going up here. Um, uh, Looking up here, I want to see where we ended up with the uh, folks coming in here. I think I'm at the. I think I caught up to where I was. So let's see. Paul, did I say hello, Paul Fisher? If not, hello. Richard Holbert asks, Shark, how far are you from Greensboro? I'll be up there next weekend taking the siblings out for lunch plus a week of gold panning. Oh, very cool. And rock counting. That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Um, Greensboro, I think that's a couple hour drive. So, yeah, they're east. But that sounds like fun going rock hounding. I used to love to do that when I was younger. Um, just you never know what you're going to find. It's exciting. Let's see. Andy's saying that he might miss the show. Oh, he's telling Irish he might miss the show. Well, that's a big rats. Oh man. And Richard's asking Irish some questions about stuff that's going on with their gold recovery. That's cool. Um, Simon, welcome, Simon. Simon says, I see no reason for gold not to go to 5,000 or higher. Okay, very cool, Simon. That's there's it's it is a real possibility. I have seen some sources that were saying 4,900 by 2026 or in 2026. So you're not that far off of what a lot of other people are saying there. So yeah, that's a very real possibility, and not to be discounted there. I mean that we could really see that happen. Um, and let's see. Sister G, welcome. Great to have you here. Great to have you here. Uh, so let's see. Simon is saying that prices at his scrapyards are constantly lagging here in Ukraine, but for silver or higher gold content materials, they go up daily. Yeah, and there's a good logic behind that because the recovering gold from PCBs has a level of involvement and processing and costs associated with it. So it does not. It's not at all unreasonable that the price increases on gold bearing material like printed circuit boards will lag the broader market of increases. Makes perfectly good sense. And let's see here. I'm looking at the comments to see. Let's see. So keep in mind that this is from Simon. Keep in mind that coins with nominal value minted like €100 are regarded as money in some circumstances at customs or other legal cases, apart from coins without face value. So, if I understand where you're going with that, yeah, it is important to understand that if your some coins are actual currency, whereas some coins are just bullion, decorative bullion, and so the premiums are going to be different, of course. And that's always something that's really important to pay attention to. So, yeah, yeah. Richard saying I wouldn't buy gold now, but I wish I had last year. I mean, that's pretty common, right? When was the best time to buy gold? Well, a couple years ago, or 10 years ago, or yeah, it's we do that dance all the time with precious metals for sure. Absolutely. Let's see. And Mike is making the point that we've discussed many times is that before that premiums go up when everyone is buying and they drop when everyone is selling. So yeah, we see that going on with the premiums all the time. And treat the premium as a built-in cost. Yeah, and just understand what that cost is. It's so very important. And there are still people out there that they forget about the premium, they ignore the premium, they think they're doing the right thing, and then they end up actually losing money because they didn't think about or account for the premium. So HH Recycling has joined the house. Great to have you here. And HH is saying happy Thanksgiving to his Canadian. Is it Thanksgiving up in Canada? I got to be honest with you, I hadn't paid attention to when Canada celebrates Thanksgiving, but if Canada is celebrating Thanksgiving, then happy Thanksgiving, my Canadian friends. Let's see. Some folks are making fun of me there, and that's fine. I usually deserve it. I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, I deserve it. No worries. All right, so a great discussion of silver. I mean, excuse me, of gold and what's going on with gold, and the things that we need to pay attention to when it comes to gold. Now, our safety note for today actually came to us not from uh, our usual source. So E-Waste Mike apparently did not injure himself this week, or at least nothing worthwhile. However, our good friend Ian Matthews sent me this picture and gave me permission to share it with you all. Now I'm looking at this, and I asked Ian, how he managed to do this, and he didn't know. And so I wasn't quite sure if I should call the safety note this week loose clothing around rotating machinery or paying attention to where your digits are. It could have been one or the other. These gloves don't look like they're loose on Ian's hand here, but clearly it get caught up in the screwdriver bit and twisted up in the knot. So I think it's worthwhile basically to, address both issues. Rotating machinery is something that we use a lot in the scrapping and recycling business, whether it's screwdrivers that we're using to unscrew things, drills to drill holes in things, grinders to cut stuff off with, get access to things, or to check to see if something is ferrous or non-ferrous. We use a lot of rotating equipment in this world, and it's important to be very careful around your rotating equipment. Now, obviously, loose clothing around rotating equipment is hazardous because a fold of a t-shirt or a sleeve that gets caught up in a grinder or a bit gets wrapped around like you see here. And if it doesn't tear, it can drag your arm, your finger into the rotating machinery. And if that rotating machinery involves sharp blades or cutting things, well, then that can be dangerous, not to mention painful. So the loose clothing thing is always very important. And then the other issue is just paying attention to where the hand that is not holding the drill is located, or if it's a hard mounted grinder and you've got both hands going, well, then you need to pay attention to where both hands are relative to the thing that is turning. And here's where we as humans can get a little sloppy, right? We start getting a little fatigued, we get a little careless, we get distracted, and the next thing you know, if you're lucky, it's just your glove that is being torn up and not your body part. So, whether it's the question of wearing loose clothing around rotating machinery or paying attention to where your digits are relative to rotating machinery, it's really important that you do both. Safety is all about risk mitigation. We will never be able to eradicate danger, especially in our business. So, the idea behind these safety notes and bringing attention to safety at least once a week is that we take a step back and we just sort of think about what we can do to mitigate some of the risk that we're going to have, whether it's in our shop, when we're picking stuff up, when we're dropping stuff off, when we're using our tools. And it's so easy for us to get complacent and then get injured. So I hope that by just throwing these things out there, it will at least cause all of us to take a step back and say, okay, what am I, when I go in my shop on Monday, am I going to take a look around and am I going to think about, this thing? And that's really important. Now, Ian was very lucky here. There were no injuries. There's no blood. His glove got tore up. And, that's part of why we wear gloves, right? We let the gloves get torn up instead of our piece parts. Usually it's not in a rotating machinery. Usually your glove is protecting you from, a sharp cut or a burn cut or something of that nature. But this just can show you how quickly something like this can get you twisted up. So I'm going to leave that picture up while we look at the comments here about safety and see what kind of things. So, la 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 la. So HH made the comment that tomorrow is the holiday. Well, thank you. I'm glad for you for telling me that, and for all my Canadian friends, have a happy Thanksgiving. It's always a fun holiday. Paul asked the question about buying gold from Costco. I know some folks have done that without any problem. I've seen other things on YouTube where people have had trouble with it. I'm leery of that. I buy directly from APMEX or JM Bullion or one of those folks. Wouldn't see any reason to go through Costco on that. But hey, if you're willing to take the risk, go for it. Let's see. And Simon is saying that, yeah, keep safe, guys. Gloves are like a second skin, not bulletproof protection. Absolutely there. Richard made the comment that, about the risks here and saying, all joking aside, I would say that you should not start drinking until you're done using your power tools. Okay. I mean, if you're drinking alcohol while you're using your power tools, you're just increasing the odds that you're going to injure yourself. So, now I know there are some people who are functional drunks or functional alcoholics, and I've seen and fired several in my professional life because they're just an accident waiting to happen. But I do not recommend consuming alcohol at the same time that you're using machinery or sharp objects. Just saying. Uh, this is a really good point here. Plane scrapper. By the way, welcome, plane scrapper. My dad was a machinist. He had to not wear his wedding ring and tear away sleeve shirts. Yeah, so um, this is really important that your jewelry can be a significant hazard, just like your clothing can. And wedding rings or other rings of any sort have led to what they call gloving injuries, where they literally, it gets caught up in a piece of machinery and it rips the skin off of your finger as if it was the finger of a glove, taking the skin off, sometimes down to the bone. So it's always important that you think about the jewelry that you have on when you're scrapping and stuff. I have gotten a little bit careless with that, in that I continue to wear my wedding band even when I'm scrapping. Um, I I feel that that's a relatively reasonable risk for the kind of work that I do. But certainly, if you're a machinist and you're working around some of the heavier duty machines and lathes and things of that nature, it makes sense that you would take off all your jewelry. Folks talking about RAM and purchasing RAM instead of gold and what to do with it. Very, very true. Anfield is listening while he's working on a project. Anfield, welcome. Great to have you listening to us. Uh, some more discussions about RAM and things to do with your RAM and which way to go with your RAM. Mike's comment, and that's just a drill. He knows better than wearing gloves at the lathe. Um, yeah, I could see where a lathe would be really nasty. Boy, howdy. Yeah, man, that would be ugh. Uh, and Richard saying one day soon I'll be recovering my own gold. Yeah, I'm working on it, man. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm doing my research. I'm looking at some hardware and things that I want to get. So I'm getting there slowly but surely. Uh, some folks talking about taking off the jewelry there. Simon Keltmaster saying plane scrapper. When we go metal detecting, we also take it off for safety. Not only noise to coil when. Oh, okay. So you just don't want the jewelry getting caught up when you're coiling up the lines and stuff. Yeah. My father-in-law talks about the horror show they shared with Navy aircraft mechanic. Oh yeah. Oh man. Boy, we saw so many Navy safety films that just they would you'd see the damage, and these were usually real incidents, real footage. So, it wasn't kind of make believe. These were real people getting injured, and you're seeing the real damage that can be done. And yeah, it makes you really, really careful for sure. Uh, okay, so good discussion about more discussion about gold, some good discussion about safety going on there, and those were some really good discussions to have there. I love having that, having all that back and forth on these things because it's really important, just really important. Okay, so our next piece was brought up as a question from last week. And last week I was asked if I would address rare earth elements. Now, that's a pretty broad kind of category to talk about. And so I was very happy to do the research and to kind of figure out, okay, so what are some good ways to move forward on rare earth elements? Because that can encompass. There's actually 17 uh, elements that are considered rare earth elements, and it's an interesting term because it's not so much that they're rare as much as they're just not concentrated the way some of the metals are that get mined. And so it makes it much more difficult to mine and process those elements into their useful forms. Plus, some of them are just really difficult to process. Um, we all, I think, understand that rare earth elements are very important in our modern society. And the element that we usually encounter in the scrapping world is neodymium. So I'm actually going to show you the prices for neodymium here, and then we're going to go in and talk a little bit more about different rare earth elements and just have a good discussion about rare earth elements. So the first thing let's do is let's talk about neodymium pricing. Now, trading economics shows that neodymium price in Chinese yuan per ton. And if we do the math, this 770,000 CNY per ton, that's about 226 US dollars per ton, or 93,102 euros per ton. And then if you take it down to the pound, that's, if I've done the math right, that's about 48-ish dollars a pound for neodymium. Now, the interesting thing that we see here, this is a 1-year chart. And when we pop up the candlesticks, each candlestick represents 1 day of trading. And so we can see that early in the year, neodymium was dropping off, climbs up, plateaus, we drop off, and then we start having some ratcheting up before we have this rather drastic jump here starting around mid-August up through where we are now, where it kind of levels out again. And we got a little bit of a drop here. So neodymium is primarily used because it can be turned into permanent magnets. These are the magnets that we find in the hard drives. And those of you that have gotten your fingers caught between the two of them, you know how much that hurts. These are very powerful permanent magnets. And they're also used in a number of other, devices, medical devices, and electricity generation and such. So we've got this pricing going on here. Let's go back to the line chart and let's go look at the forecast for neodymium. Now we pop out to the 5-year look here, and we can see that back in 2021, neodymium climbed, dropped. We had another climb out here going into 2022. We go through a series of kind of jagged ups and downs as it slowly drops off again here. And now here we are in this 2025 period starting here, where we had just what we were looking at, that slow climb before this rather steep rise. And then the forecast is for a somewhat muted rise. And there's some of you may be scratching your head thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, if the US and China are really going at each other, how can the prices not be expected to go up so much more? And again, these are forecasts. And so you've got there's a certain amount of speculation involved in these forecasts. I like the trading economics people because the way they use a number of sources to roll out these forecasts. And as you're going to see when we move over into the discussion of rare earth elements, neodymium, similar to other rare earths, it's not that they're not available in places other than China. It's just that right now China has the lead in mining and processing. So we see that there is some future for neodymium growth, and then the question becomes, okay, so how do we as scrappers sell neodymium? Well, usually you do it by selling the hard drives, and places like BoardSort, they buy hard drives in various forms, and so part of that is there's the neodymium in there. Now, there are some companies that are figuring out how to recycle neodymium magnets. And it's really interesting to explore what these companies have to do in order to recover the neodymium that's in neodymium magnets, and then turn that around into pure neodymium that can be alloyed with things to make new magnets or other things. So it's a very involved process. It's not nearly the straightforward chemistry that we would use as home recyclers to recover gold or silver. It's much more involved, and it's definitely something that is going to be left to the industrial scales. The recycling of neodymium is kind of at the beginning stages of what could be in the future. Let's take a look at what is of just the science and the realities of rare earth elements. And to do that, I found probably one of the best sources that I found was this U.S. Geologic Survey report. It was updated 2019, rare earth element mineral deposits in the United States. It's a really interesting report because, what we've been hearing a lot here in the United States is how China is dominating rare earth elements. And we're going to see some charts here that help us to better understand this. So, for instance, there's a mine in California that mines rare earth, but everything is sent to China for processing because China has the processing plants. The reason for that is because it's got some serious environmental challenges, and the Chinese have demonstrated a history of not caring about the environmental damage that is created in the pursuit of economics. So, I mean, there are stories after stories of towns and villages, cities in China that essentially you cut your lifespan in half living there because the water is so polluted, the air is so polluted. And then what happens is it gets to a point where the people start to, I don't want to say rise up, but eventually the government has to come in and say, oh, yeah, we are going to enforce this law now. So they throw a few people in jail. They make it look like they're doing something about it, when in fact they've been turning a wink and a nod and a blind eye to it for for a decade or more, so that they can get the economic advantages. And essentially it's because for the most part, and I know this sounds terrible, but it's a historical reality. Chinese government really doesn't care a whole lot about the population and the people and the environment in which the people live until they have no choice but to care about it. So, as opposed to the United States and Europe and Japan and these other more modern industrial nations where we have environmental regulations and we have these laws in place to protect workers, so that they don't die from heavy metal poisoning and toxic streams and those sorts of things. So uh, while it's easy for a lot of people to complain about the environmental regulations that we have in the US, in Europe, in Canada, they're there to protect us as citizens. And there's a balance that has to happen here, right? So let's take a look at this report. By the way, I encourage anybody who wants to go ahead and write down this address: pubs.usgs.gov forward slant CIRC forward slant 14554 forward slant CIRC1454.pdf, or just search on any search engine for USGS rare earth element reports, and you'll be able to see this and study it in more detail. It really is an interesting report, and I'm going to when I get to this one, I'm going to blow this up a little bit because it's a little bit difficult to see when you look at the whole page. But so rare earth elements, here they are in the periodic table. They fit basically into these two slots, and you have light rare earths and heavy rare earths. You can see where they fit in the lanthid series and the actinide series, and I'm not going to try to pronounce all of the names that are out there. The 17 rare earth names. You'll be able to read about them all in here. And it is interesting how modern society and chemical engineering has learned to use rare earth minerals in various things. So here's a real nice, we'll blow this up a little bit more, a nice little table on the element and places where you see it being used. So here again is the neodymium that we are very used to seeing, and it's used in permanent magnets. We know this. I mean, we deal with these all the time. But it's interesting the amount of materials that are out there that we don't even think of. So for instance, cerium is in colored glass used on flat panel displays and automobile catalytic converters. You've got lanthanum that is used in optical glass. It's also in nickel metal hydride batteries. We deal with these things too. We see these all the time. Many of us just don't realize that this chemistry is involved. We've got optical fibers and visible displays that are using europium. You've got fuel cells and lighting that are using terbium. And here's more permanent magnets using dysprosium. Here's lasers. And as I'm looking for lasers for my sharks, I want to know about what kind of lasers I can use out there. Here's erbium that's used in glass coloring and fiber optic cables. Thulium that's used in lasers and portable X-ray machines. There's just you see just some of how these are used. So it's to me it's fascinating how chemists, chemical engineers, they discovered these things. They figured out that when alloyed with other materials, they can really come up with some interesting properties and do some things that we just weren't able to do with previous materials. So This report goes in talking about the supply concerns. Here's the mine in California, Mountain Pass Mine in Southeast California. Uh, Although they are mining the material, it's being sent to China for processing. So it's the processing that becomes a challenge. Here we can see in this map that there are rare earths here in the United States. Each one of these dots represents a mine or a collection possibility or a discovery of rare earth elements. This yellow thing is the Southeast Basin sands that have rare earth elements in them. Alaska also has rare earths. Canada definitely has rare earths. So it's not that rare earths aren't available in the United States or other places. It's just do we want to the mining and the processing investments that are necessary. I found this chart to be really interesting. This is world mine production of rare earth oxides. So that's the other thing. So the rare earth, it's not like you're mining neodymium. You're mining these oxides from which the rare earth elements can be extracted. That's the processing part. And so what we can see here is the blue is China, the purple is United States, the gray other countries. So you can see where the United States and other countries actually began studying and mining rare earths. It was the U.S. and these other countries up until, where are we at here? The late night, no, around going into the mid 1980s. And that's when we see that China starts picking up with their mining. And, again, because China is a huge country, they've got a lot of people, they've got a large geography. And so they're perfectly happy to turn vast swaths of their nation into mines. And they also have been very aggressive in going around the world to mine rare earths around the world and negotiate perhaps not so very good deals with countries for their rare earth uh, elements. Uh, this will continue to be, a geopolitical source of friction, probably for the remainder of humanity, because we're just going to continue to understand and use more of these things. This is just going to continue for years to come, and it will be very incumbent upon our politicians globally to figure out ways to manage this, short of global conflict. This is just a really good report. I would encourage anybody who's curious about rare earth minerals, rare earth elements, and you want to learn more about it, take a look at this report, read it through. It gets kind of geeky, which is, fun. For at least I think it is. It doesn't make for a very good live stream, but it's there's some geekness involved, and they show you where how the geologists can find these things and what they look like. So it's a very interesting kind of discussion. And again, I would encourage you to take a look at those because it's fun, right? It's very educational, and it's easy for the politics and the sound bites of the day to get in the way of the realities and the truths. When you take a step back, try to dig into it a little bit more and understand it, then it's a very fascinating subject. So, having gone down that road, let's see what we've had to talk about here. So Richard asked the question. Did I research how many American rare earth mines are owned and operated by Chinese companies? I did not go look at the details of those because those kind of things can be fluid and changing, and so I didn't, the one thing that I did find that was really interesting to me was that where we do have operating mines, uh, the material is being shipped to China for processing because we're really lacking in processing capability here in the U.S. Um, Working at a place that recycles neodymium magnets sounds scary. Well, it's I read there were two companies that I took a look at. Uh, it's it's interesting. I mean, the processes that they're using are very different than anything that we would take a look at that we would think of. Um, Scary, I don't know so much scary. I mean, it's but as an engineer and a scientist, I'm used to looking at things that are challenging that could kill you, but realizing that with proper understanding of science and engineering, you can substantially mitigate the risks involved in that. So I can see where for some people it might seem scary, whereas for others it's a recognized risk. I tell you where I would be more concerned, to be quite honest with you, would be working at a plant making lithium batteries. Um, because having worked with the Navy to understand lithium batteries and how to generate the fires from lithium batteries and what happens when they catch fire and stuff, a lithium battery plant, as the saying goes, it's not if you'll have a fire, but when and how bad. Lithium is now considered a rare earth element, so it's really not part of this discussion. But that those places, yeah, those are those would be scary to me anyway. Let's see here. La, 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 la. Looking at comments here on. So, if we take a look at the rare earths and we go up, I want to go back up here. And I want to find the chart, this chart here. Um, and Simon is saying, if what rare earths would you collect? Now, um, I don't think tantalum is actually considered a rare earth in the classic definition, in the pure definition of a rare earth. Um, but we can lump it in with the discussion. Certainly, the because the discussion that I would have is you say that these are what you would stack. Okay, but if you're going to stack it, why are you stacking it? If it is to make money on it, who are you going to sell it to? So that always becomes a key discussion. For a long time, I was removing tantalums in anticipation of selling to a tantalum processor down in Florida, but they, I think, went out of business or something because they never responded when I was trying to get quotes from them. Now you can sell tantalum, the boxy tantalum capacitors to boardsort.com, and there may be other buyers that are willing to buy the epoxy dip tantalum capacitors and such. Neodymium magnets, I have not found a recycling buyer for neodymium magnets. I have found people that buy them for craft projects, for other uses. And the recycling companies that I discovered, um, to be honest, I didn't get a response back from them as I reached out to them during the week. So I don't know if they buy neodymium magnets from consumers, or if you need to have them in some large quantity. And shipping neodymium magnets can be a real challenge because it's not like you can just put a whole bunch of them in a U.S. Postal Service flat rate box and shove it in the mail. There's very strict requirements about magnets in the mail. As you can imagine, just from the basic reality of, you don't want this box getting stuck inside of a machine that is sorting packages. So there's some rules about magnets in the mail that you need to pay attention to. So shipping magnets in large quantities can be an interesting challenge. Um, so stacking rare earth is it's not so much about stacking the rare earth as much as selling things that contain rare earths, and a lot of times we don't even know they do. Like flat screen TVs, which you know the, what's in them, kind of thing. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion, Simon. And from my perspective, if I'm going to stack something, it's going to be something like gold and silver that I know I can sell or trade because people understand it, and I don't have to try to convince them that it's worth money to them. uh, Mike is absolutely right. Yeah, we've had hard times too when the environment gets the shaft. Absolutely, absolutely. We are not innocent of that. I mean, I was a youngster in when when the U.S. had its sort of big environmental awakening, and it's really important that we balance these things because as a modern society, we want and need certain things, and there's no reason why we can't balance those wants and needs with appropriate environmental protection so that we're not destroying the world that we live in order to have the things that we want to have. Um, and yes, that's expensive. And yes, it can take time and slow us down. But in the long run, if we care about the generations that are going to come after us, we definitely need to do that. Ba, 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 ba. It's interesting, Simon, that you bring up iridium. When I was getting my master's in oceanography, one of the things that we, of course, had to study was geology. That plays a big part of oceanography. And we learned about the K2 boundary where iridium was concentrated. And, it was a huge part of understanding the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs and distributed iridium around the planet. So, really interesting discussion there. And let's see, germanium price is rocking, and it's accepted. Tiny amounts are widely found in transistors. Okay, very cool. I mean, if you have a buyer for these things, that's very cool. Um, I have not found, other than a few things here and there, I haven't found buyers for specifically for some of these rare earths that you're talking about here. Um, so, much less a buyer for the material as a buyer for, the stuff that might contain them and why they're buying them. So that's an interesting discussion to have. Oh, and you bring it up right here that you have specialized scrap yards that are buying these things. So that's fantastic. I have to believe that probably here in the U.S. somewhere we would have something similar. that I just haven't come across yet, because it's not something that I've really put a lot of energy into. But that's fantastic that you have buyers for them where you're at. That would be really interesting to be able to find something similar here. No comment, Mike. No comment. Hey, Cruiser Mac, great to have you on board, man. Uh, yeah, Simon Tantalon is always a really. I was actually collecting um, flat screen TVs because of the tantalum oxide in anticipation of selling that. And then, of course, could never find a buyer for it. So that ended up. Well, I tell you what, folks, it is. I just realized that it is time to head over to Ireland. So I apologize. I ran over time here. I wasn't paying attention. I got all caught up in the comments and stuff. So, um, really good discussion. And I look forward to seeing all of you over in Ireland. Scrapping Irish might be doing things a little bit different, where it might be the first half hour is a specific topic that he's talking about before he brings up the panel. We'll see when we get over there. And if you have autoplay enabled when I end this stream, you will be automatically redirected across the pond to Ireland. If you do not have autoplay enabled, please go up into your YouTube search bar, type in Scrapping Irish, and join us over on Scrapping Irish's live stream already in progress in Ireland. If I don't see you over there, have a safe week.